can change their vote. It's only black men that are not allowed to say, hey, the Democrats did not do a great job for me. I'm going to Republican. I find it very strange.
Really, Atuka,
like that.
I don't necessarily agree with that statement. Look at the number of black representatives that are there when it comes to Republican representatives, in both houses. I don't think that that's necessarily true.
Okay, Ask, if you remember what Barack Obama went and said, right, a few weeks ago, talking down to black men why they don't want to vote for Kamala Harris. And look at all the celebrities, especially the black men celebrities, talking down to other men that you can't be a black man if you don't do this. And thirdly, to your point, most black people are centered in the Democrat Party. That's why there's a larger representation of blacks within the Democratic Party. Like I'm saying, usually the trends are for blacks. They vote Democrats no matter who. But the one time they say, you know what, let's do what other races are doing and look at the policies, they have to be talked down to like they are children.
Okay. I get the point that you're making, Atuka. I get the point that you're making. I didn't quite read it as being so defined along gender lines as I saw it as being around racial lines, and in particular minority groups, to say that minorities are the ones that benefit the most from the ideas of the Democratic Party. They're the ones that will be most protected by some of their policy initiatives.
Okay, just go play back what Obama said. He was talking specifically to black men.
Okay. All right, Atuka. In Matlosana, we'll leave it there. KB in Soweto, good morning.
Good morning, Katie, and good morning to the SFM listeners.
Yes.
Katie, today I'd like to talk about the study that was conducted, I think last month, that 63% of the South African population cannot afford good food for the whole of the month. And there was also the study by Professor Tulima Jonzwela about also 60% of the population of South Africa are facing food poverty. So I believe, Katie, that because if you look at the rural areas, in the past they used to have a subsistence farming, but they are battling that. Maybe you can get Minister of Agriculture, maybe, because I believe if they can reintroduce that subsistence farming based on cooperatives and Department of Agriculture and Water and Land and Rural Development, if they can work together about this, because I think it's a very serious challenge that is facing South Africa.
Yeah, KB, I agree 100% with you, especially because there are more efficient ways to produce food today than there were before.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Another thing, the thing that is the Department of Land and Rural Development. I have a problem of rural development. It's like you want to urbanize rural areas. Why don't you change it to a rural economy? Land and rural economy, so that government maybe strategies will be based on economizing the rural areas instead of developing them.
Okay.
Because yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, KB. Thanks for that contribution. KB out in Soweto. KB is right around the issue of poverty in this country. Our poverty levels have just gotten out of control. And you just have to hear what the NGOs that work, particularly in some rural areas, where we have seen the changing weather patterns. So to KB's point, in areas where they were able to easily farm, and one thinks about the Eastern Cape here and KZN, easily able to farm, provide for themselves because of the inclement weather and the climate and how it's been affected, they simply aren't able to do what they used to do before. And it's exacerbating the poverty, but also exacerbating the hunger. It is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a country. Mike, you're in Middleburg. Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, Cathy, the leading party in the GNU, by the way, we no longer say the governing party now, we say the leading party in the GNU, has enough literature, loaded with adequate content for political school in their quest for organizational renewal project. Whether you talk about through the eye of the needle, conduct of the new cadre, Umhabulo, all volumes, of course, including strategy and tactics, that is revised from Congress to Congress for adaptation to changing environment. And even the men assigned, to preside over this political school, Comrade David Makura, has got impeccable credentials for the task of this magnitude. I have full confidence in him. However, Cathy, the challenge is confronting the elephant in the room. And remember the RECs and PEC leadership, by virtue of strategic position they occupy in government. Ordinarily, they should be custodians of ethical and moral leadership to correlate with what political education is to achieve.
What is the elephant in the room for you, Mike?
Yes, the elephant in the room is the fact that in many RECs and PECs, words like ethics and morals are not found in their dictionaries. You see, hence you have dysfunctional institutions, municipalities, ghost employees, and ghost projects. So the question is, how is the leadership in political education going to approach? Because if you have people who are not leading by example, and yet they are in these strategic positions, and you want to achieve organizational renewal, where do you start?
Do you think, Mike, that this is just going to be one of those exercises that the party can look at and feel, yes, we can take that, we try to do something about it, when in fact all it is exactly that. It's an exercise, because they're not dealing with the real issues. One of our listeners, raised concerns about what Zizi Kodwa had to say on Friday, about how he was supported by his comrades and supported by his party when he was facing these charges and when he was arrested.
Yes, what matters most, Cathy, are the outcomes, the desired results. Whatever exercise that we do, no matter how good the content might be, as I indicated that in terms of the content, you cannot falter them. The content is good, the literature is there, but the implementation must yield desired results. I mean, Cathy, how do you suddenly expect a PEC that met and decided that an official who collapsed VPS should be a municipal manager in the municipality? Well, luckily that did not happen because the opposition and some good members in the organization rejected that. How do you suddenly expect this PEC to embrace ethical and moral leadership?
Okay, Mike, let's leave it there. It's time for your latest news headlines.
News headlines at 9:30 on SAFM. I am on Delambana and a very good morning. 4 suspects who were wanted for murders related to violence in the taxi industry have been killed in a shootout with police in Moya River in KwaZulu-Natal. 2 suspects have been arrested for kidnapping and robbing a German tourist in Graskop, Mpumalanga, and 55 arrested suspected illegal mine workers are expected to appear in the Stilfontein Magistrates Court in the Northwest. They were arrested after they resurfaced from underground shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein following the police's Operation Vala Umgodi. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Cathy. This is Mohlahlana from Pretoria. You know, I laughed when you played that song. They fell down just like dominoes. Hey, that's so funny. Thinking of Mohlahlana, you know, and him resigning and going to focus on what matters most, the family.
Morning, Cathy. Morning to the listeners of SAFM. Bafanas Bia here from Nkwenkwe. Cathy, I just wonder what happened to the Freedom Charter that said South Africa belongs to all who live in it. I wonder now why the SACP is deviating from what they followed due to the agreement that was done to dismantle racism. Now racism is rife. Both blacks and white, they are busy with racism. I'm so disappointed.
Cathy, good morning. It's Sonabo from Armanas on your open line. I just want to talk about the Sundowns coach, Mangoba Mkriti. Mangoba Mkriti, he must stop his nonsense of interfering to Kaizer Chiefs affairs. Not so long ago, he was complaining about the national coach, Mr. Hugo Bruce, that was interfering to Sundowns' internal affairs. But he's also doing the same thing. So he must mind his own business. He must not put his nose where it does not belong to. Chiefs, whether he's playing with the young players or the older players, that's none of his business. He must only mind his own business at Sundowns. Thank you. Sonabin Arbanas.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to SFM listeners. Cathy, since we are in a government of national unity, I just want to ask, are our problems being resolved? Is unemployment going high or down? Is crime or the level of crime going up, or we are winning? I'm asking this question deliberately, Cathy, because we don't want a situation next year, especially to all parties that are in a government of national unity, to come to us and say we are going to reduce crime, we are going to reduce unemployment, as if they were not here in South Africa. They are from somewhere. So can we please statistically at least check whether we are on the right track or we are declining? Thanks very much. This is Tapelo Izanin.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Yeah, look, I would think that maybe as Chiefs fans, we're open to taking a bit of advice. I mean, that thrashing over the weekend was a real thrashing, eh? 20 minutes into the game, I had tuned out. I left. I stopped watching. I couldn't watch anymore. My heart hurt too much because it was so. Why can't we take a little advice? He's not interfering in Chiefs' affairs. He's just saying, guys, this is how you lost 4-0. Let me help you so that next time maybe you position yourselves better to win. So Lomzi, you're in the Free State. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and the SA listeners. Can you please help the nation, man? You know, all those networks are charging the people big money. For example, I'm using MTN. I buy 20 rand airtime. MTN is offering me 10 rand airtime extra, a free airtime. But I will phone for just 3 minutes. All that, the free airtime and the one which I bought is gone, all. How is that impossible? I mean, how is that possible? I'm please asking, can you call ICASA or SIU or Consumer Council to help the nation investigate these networks? Are they dealing with the people honestly?
You know, Solomzi, what you're raising, I think also applies not just to airtime, but also to data.
To data also.
I've been feeling recently that the data just disappeared. And you know, my viewing habits have not changed, but what used to last me a month worth of data now gets me through 2 weeks. And I agree with you that I think there's something happening. There's something happening. And I don't know if it has to do also with the expiry, this idea of expiration date of data. Like, why does data have an expiration date? How does that make sense? It's not a consumable, you know?
Cathy, I am self-employed. I'm using a phone to get to my customers because some of them, they are leaving messages on my phone. I'm buying airtime. I'm being offered a free airtime. But to my surprise, the free airtime, it seems as if it's coming to take away the airtime I've bought. Because immediately when they offer me the free airtime, my airtime will be gone in 3 seconds. I even wanted to phone them and say, oh, stop the free airtime. I don't want it. I'll use my money to buy myself airtime.
Yeah. Look,
can you please help us?
We can definitely look around having a conversation where that is concerned, Solomzi, because I must say, even on social media, I'm seeing more and more people complain about how quickly their units are becoming depleted when they buy them. And I know sometimes the network operators will say, well, make sure you don't have apps that are running in the background, make sure you know this, know that. But you, of course, are also referring to a certain history that you have. So, you know, if you're calling a certain number of customers, you're speaking to each customer for so long, this is how much you generally spend.
But can you please do something to help us? These people, I suspect that they're robbing the people millions and billions of money.
Okay, all right, Solomzi. In the Free State, you've put it on the agenda, and it's certainly something that we can look into. I think we'll also need some of the journalists that work specifically in the technology space to come in on this conversation too. Let me go to Lerotodi in Gauteng. Good morning, Lerotodi.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes, how are you?
Yes, I'm fine, Cathy. Yeah, if I talk about American, let me start here in Africa. Let me be Sito Mantula for now. Look, Cathy, I was in Windhoek over the weekend, so they're going for polls November 27. So I think also we are going to see the miracles again there in Namibia, but by sweeping the SWAPO people call the liberation movement. I think SWAPO is going. That they told me they're going to use a Botswana philosophy by deciding once that they are no longer want the SWAPO party there. In Namibia. Are you aware of the date of?
So effectively, Lerotodi, the sense among the SADC region is around calling time, particularly for the liberation movements or the former liberation movements.
Yeah, liberation movement. I think they must all go because we have to take a decision. We are people to eliminate them because this is a hard time by dictating, by doing nothing. By always saying we have to fighting for the country, fighting for the freedom. But SWAPO is going to lose this time around. It's a political IPC for Itura in Namibia. The 27 November, I think it will be a new government in Namibia also. Because we as people of SADC, we decided to prevent the problem of SADC Mnangagwa in our election as they do in Botswana. They prevented him. Now we see there is a change in Botswana. And again in Namibia, they're going to use the same philosophy by preventing Mnangagwa on observing the election. Let me tell you something, Cathy. On the November 30, when it was election in Botswana, when the current president, the Duma Boko, arriving in the polling station, I think also you have seen that video. It was a police officer there who made an honor by saluting him as an opposition leader, which it was a risk for that police officer. But he promoted him. We have received the information this morning. He promoted him because the police officer took a risk by saluting him as an opposition president. So, but now, as we are still believe the High Court in Mozambique, they are going to still recall the election again, because we still believe Frelimo didn't win election, Renamo win election.
Yeah.
So, but we are still waiting.
Look, and the situation in Mozambique in particular is concerning. And South Africa's silence around it is equally concerning.
Okay, yeah, all right. Now, so I was just highlighting about Africa. I was in Windhoek, even 27 November, I was in Windhoek. But now, I didn't hear you, as you always do, by our regional election. We are going for country number 3 now. You never engage our regional election cover Nixon Katembo. I don't know why you never engage me, because you normally engage me.
No, Lerotodi, we spoke to. He was on the show literally in the last month, Lerotodi. Maybe you missed the program on that day, but I'm going to leave it there with you for Lerotodi, aka Advocate Mantula, with the Africa Report. He did a good job. And he's right. You know, Namibians do go to the polls. Botswana, you saw at the end of October what happened. There's a new president in town. Social media, of course, I think has been having the biggest laugh around the change of power in Botswana. Have you seen the videos of the former president dancing by the pool? Yeah, social media has definitely added a dynamic of life that we would have never, ever been able to see. Anonymous, you're in Mossel Bay. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. How are you?
Good. What do you want to talk about?
Sis Cathy, I just want to give some advice especially to everybody that uses smartphones. So, the thing is, what I did when I realized that all my airtime is getting just sucked out, I just went to a friend, and that friend told me that as soon as I enter the pen or the airtime onto my cell phone, I should at the same time buy me minutes. So minutes, you don't have airtime, so you just buy the minutes and choose the any network minutes. So you will your minutes will only finish when you finish it. So, and you will not struggle a lot. So, and also SMS voucher. Because literally my airtime has been for years and years, and I've been taking my SIM card and I've been calling the network providers, and they would always say that I'm subscribed to some kind of a game deal. So I'm not sure what's going on, and I've never heard anyone trying to report it.
Okay. Anonymous, I hear you, but I think we'll also get some of the people perhaps who understand the space a bit better to come and have this conversation with us. But thanks for the advice nonetheless. It sounds like you've found something that works for you. But yeah, we'll absolutely see if we can't have a more broader conversation on this issue with those that are in industry. Mutibang, you're in Florida. Good morning.
I'm in Florida this morning. Charlie, I just want to say something about what's happening with the children in this country. You know what's the problem? I think we really now have to take this problem and place it at the doorstep of the president of this country. Because I'll tell you what, Cathy, if we have the president has to say something when he says that children in his country are dying like flies. Does he want us to get accustomed to this thing, like the load shedding and the lack of water and so on? Why is he keeping quiet? That's my concern. Right now, Donald Trump says when he takes office, he'll make sure that the criminals leave America. I mean, he doesn't hit by the bush. So this president of us, I think, is complicit in as far as this crime of the killing of our children is concerned. And he must be summons to go and appear in court. I mean, I cannot take it anymore. I'm a citizen of this country, and many of us are, and we are the law-abiding citizens of this country. But then what's happening, we cannot really take it anymore. And you said earlier on that the presidency has to be accountable. Now I support it. You know, in 2017, I was one of those people, the CR17, people who really supported President Cyril Ramaphosa with everything at our disposal. But then we said, give a man a chance. He failed all of us. Now, Cathy, it's time that we demand our country back into our own hands. President Cyril Ramaphosa should be held accountable. Why is he keeping quiet? It is killing me. Why is he keeping quiet when the criminals are killing our children? I'm going to be sending you a photo hereafter and the video clip where the Somalis are walking the streets of Soweto with AK-47s and hundreds of millions of ammunition. And where are the police? Where are the army? Where is the president? I think we, the citizenry of this country, now have to stand up against President Cyril Ramaphosa, all of us, all at once.
All right, Mutibang, a disappointed Mutibang, as you heard, out in Florida, demanding more accountability from the president. He wants to hear his voice, particularly on crime and the issue of contaminated foods and poisoning that is killing the country's children.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Rise and shine. Plan to keep rising and shining with victory to secure a decent top-half spot. But the Rockets are not impressed with their slow start of the season. They believe this is the time to collect 3 points. Limpopo battles it out with Mpumalanga. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Mzansi's beautiful game, Polokwane City FC versus TS Galaxy FC on Saturday, 9 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one OUTsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to buy an OUTsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance, a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Hammers have a mammoth task to find a path to the top half. They target maximum points against the Toffees.
Bundled in by Sensor Somerville, his first West Ham United goal.
Meanwhile, the Toffees have the same predicament. They want out of the bottom half as soon as possible.
It's a cross goal, and it's netted by Beto, and Everton have equalised 4 minutes into
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between West Ham United FC and Everton FC on Saturday, 9 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, you're listening to The Talking Point. It is your open line, your national roundtable. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. One message coming through here says, "Hi Cathy, I'm Brian. I stay in South Hills, Johannesburg. We've been without water for the past 2 to 3 weeks. Though sometimes Joburg Water sends trucks, it is insufficient. I stay on the 3rd floor in an apartment building. Imagine having to carry 20-litre buckets of water to the 3rd floor. What about the elderly and the sick? Can you please get the Joburg MMC for water or the mayor to come and give us feedback about what is going on? Joburg Water blames Rand Water. Rand Water blames Joburg Water. Meanwhile, we as the citizens are suffering." Thanks for that message, Brian. There have been some serious challenges around water cuts in the city of Johannesburg. We will absolutely follow up to find out what some of the delays in restoring that power has been, that water has been. Vuyiswa, you're in Parktown North. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good. You want to talk about the U.S. elections?
Yes, and the environment. I'll just be trying to summarize. I'm just content, because it seems as Africans we don't learn that the Democrats and the Republicans are the one and the same thing. They report to the same master. It's all about changing who is going to lead, comes with a project. And I'm concerned how many African leaders or organizations have taken their briefcase and their bags to go and observe the elections in the U.S.
Yeah, Vuyiswa, don't let the Americans hear you say that.
No, I'm saying that. Because anyone who gets into White House is to control the world, the foreign policy. We don't rule America. America is ruled by Congress. So it seems as Africans would get taken off and then there's this euphoria. We think things are going to change. What has Kamala done for the women in the world as a leading nation? What has she done? Just want accountability of what she has done. There's nothing she's going to do. It's just going to be like the Obama thing. And on the environment, I just want to find out, Cathy, why are we so quiet? Things are going wrong. You can't come from extremely cold weather. Instead of going to spring, go to extremely hot. We need to get involved in this whole environment because we know exactly who are fighting Mother Nature. It is the very same scientists that come back and tell us this and that. That is not there.
How are the scientists fighting Mother Nature?
Oh, you call it conspiracy theory. I can give you.
Vuyiswa. Okay, masiyeke. Bye-bye. Alfred, you're in Mpumalanga. Good morning. Good, Alfred. What do you want to talk about?
No, Katie, I want to talk about American elections.
Go for it.
Katie, I'm worried because if we want to promote peace in the world around the globe, we must start doing the correct things in U.S. Katie, we can't be voting for warlords in America when we want a world to be in peace. We can't be bringing somebody with hatred to Arabian nations if we want to promote peace around the globe. Cathy, it is obvious reasons why I'm saying that. We have seen the attitude of US. You see, as a result of the warlords. You see, I thought this man, who's currently the president of America, is a peaceful man. But then seemingly I was wrong. You see, and I can't even trust Trump for now. You see, but then though Trump has showed many times that he is a man who's living or whose interest is not a war. You see, so for now I'm really confused. That to promote a world peace, what is it that you must do in America? Because everyone changed after election.
Yeah, Alfred, thanks for that contribution, and it ties in with what Voice on Parktown was saying about the role of the American president and how they shape foreign policy and the impact that then has on the rest of the world. And sometimes, regardless of who the president is, American foreign policy does tend to fall along certain patterns and behaviors and trends, and that's that's sort of undeniable. So how much power does an individual actually have to steer a fully different trajectory, whatever that might mean? Thabo, you're in Emalahleni. Good morning.
Morning, Katie. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm okay. Katie, I bought a house in 2013 in Emalahleni. So 2015 I lost my job, and from there it has been court orders, and then auction. The house was auctioned in 2020, but since then I've been harassed by the person who purported to have bought the house, and now they yesterday sent me with an eviction letter, but what I know is that a person may only be evicted through a court order. So this is a letter from the lawyers that says I must evacuate the house, and I'm in distress. Children are writing exams right now. I'm staying with them now, and this is all happening in front of them. My story is so long because in between there were irregular things that were happening.
Thabo, who has the title deed for that property?
I used to have it. I bought the house through the bank. I won't mention the bank for now. Yes,
and then was it distressed, went on the market, bought on auction, or what happened?
Okay, what happened was there was a court order that came in 2020. One that says the house can be sold for 900,000. Then the house went on auction in 2020 December after I paid on the 1st of December, but on the 2nd they took it to auction, even though they promised me that if I pay something they won't take it to auction.
Okay.
But it went on auction, and then from there the lady started to harass me. She broke the locks to the house, the safety doors, and then intimidating me. I've been harassed by this lady and the sheriff, and then now yesterday they gave me a letter that comes from some lawyers that says I was not cooperating, and in that letter as well, there was no engagement between me and the lady.
Okay.
What she was doing, she was harassing me all the time, just coming and breaking the locks and all of that.
Look, I can hear that you're quite distressed about the situation you find yourself in. If there's anybody who's listening to the program, expert in property, that has advice for Thabo, please do get in touch with us. We'll pass that advice on. I'm going to put you through to Kanya so that you can give her more of the details, and we'll see if there's any place that we can refer you to, Thabo, and all the best with your situation.
Top stories: wanted suspects in taxi violence shot dead in KZN, and first ballots of US election day have been cast. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. 4 suspects who were wanted for murders related to violence in the taxi industry have been killed in a shootout with the police in Moya River in KwaZulu-Natal. Provincial Police spokesperson Robert Nchewunda says one of the suspects was a 40-year-old man who was wanted in connection with the shooting of a chairperson of a taxi association and his deputy in Bergville earlier this year. Nchewunda says the man was also wanted in connection with the attempted murder of a taxi owner in Winterton.
Police intercepted the suspect's vehicle on the N3 highway and signaled for the driver to stop. However, the driver sped off and took the Heathcote turn off, joining the R103 road towards Escort. During the high-speed chase, suspect fired shots at the police, and in order to protect themselves and other road users, police returned fire, and during the shootout, 4 suspects who were the occupants in the vehicle were shot and fatally wounded. 2 firearms, a rifle and a pistol, as well as ammunition were found in the possession of the suspects.
2 suspects have been arrested for kidnapping and robbing a German tourist in Graskop, Mpumalanga. Police say that the incident happened shortly after the German man withdrew money from an ATM at a petrol station in the area yesterday. Provincial Police spokesperson Donald Mhluli says a member of the public tipped officers about the incident. Police then located the suspect's rented vehicle and rescued the tourist who had injuries. Police also suspected that the arrested man may have been involved in other criminal activities in the area. Residents of Alexandra in northern Johannesburg have demolished the spaza shop from, they believe, a 10-year-old girl bought suspected contaminated snacks. Lesedi Maboi died at the weekend after allegedly consuming the snacks. Her mother is still in hospital, while her other sibling has been discharged after allegedly eating the same snacks on Monday. Alexandra resident Cathy Mohlahlana has welcomed the demolishing of the spaza shop.
The community came out in numbers because what happened is painful. It is heartbreaking to lose a child when you were looking forward to their bright future.
More than 350 suspected illegal miners will appear in the Stilfontein Magistrate Court in the Northwest today. 55 of them will reappear after being in court yesterday, while more than 300 others will make their first court appearance. The suspects were arrested after they resurfaced from underground shafts in Orkney and Stilfontein following police's Operation Vala Umgodi. Hundreds of suspected illegal mine workers resurfaced from underground at the weekend due to starvation and dehydration. In news further afield, the first ballots of election day have been cast at Dixville Notch in New Hemisphere, continuing its tradition of midnight voting. Concerns about adverse reaction to election results have led to increased security. Barriers have been erected outside the White House and elsewhere in Washington. Several states have also been put the National Guard on standby. Meanwhile, the BBC's John Sadworth looks at some of the major policy differences between Harris and Trump.
The economy is, as always, the big issue. Donald Trump has radical plans to impose sweeping tariffs of 60% on Chinese goods and up to 20% on all other imports. Kamala Harris says that would be a disaster. On foreign policy, too, she's widely seen as far more predictable. Yet, despite the concern in European capitals, for example, over Mr. Trump's signals that he might reduce military aid to Ukraine, it's unclear what a second Trump term in the White House would mean in practice. One of the clearest policy differences is over abortion. Key swing states like Georgia now have tight restrictions on the procedure. Ms. Harris has promised to pass legislation restoring choice as a federal right.
Recapping the top story, 4 suspects who were wanted for murders related to violence in the taxi industry have been killed in a shootout with police in Moya River in KwaZulu-Natal. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 10:30.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Whatever you need for a personal loan, choose a bank that's best for your loans. Nedbank offers loans of up to 400,000 Rand at the best possible fixed interest rates. And there's more. Open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account and you can enjoy 200 Rand cash back every month for the duration of your loan term. That's up to 14,400 Rand cash back. Visit nedbank.co.za to apply for your tailored personal loan. See money differently. Nedbank. We are licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. 16 teams of Mzansi Africa's elite league are back to the battlefield. Namandla Masha. They all believe Utukusoba right, Kuba bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Upolala Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana, and coming up in this hour, we'll be talking finance with Brian Hirsch, as we do every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And today we are going to be looking at the important issue of medical healthcare costs. But before we get into it, the WhatsApp voice note line, very varied this morning. I'm sorry to all the Kaizer Chiefs fans that are upset with my comments, but just remember that I'm also a Kaizer Chiefs fan. Ne? So when you shout at me and get angry, just know that we're batting from the same side. We want the same thing. All right, let's play WhatsApp voice notes, and then we'll get into our conversation with Brian.
This is a listener from Kabeja. Man, I was busy eating the nice rice pipis here, and I heard you talking about Kaizer Chiefs. Now I cannot continue with the pipis. I'm sad, man. Thank you. Bye.
Cathy, MTN, I also want to complain. Maybe you should bring them on air. You put data in, and then it tells you have 8 gigabytes, for example, and then there's nothing. Can't they just read? They can't accurately tell you that you have so much gigabytes of data. You see, sometimes you are told you have more data, but there's nothing. Sometimes you have less data, but there's data. You know, they must just learn from Vodacom or CLC, not this what they are doing. Thanks, Anonymous.
Good morning, Cathy. Please, I just want you to help us understand. Just ask anyone who knows exactly what is happening with these snacks in the spaza shops. Is it the ones that people who package themselves and make small parcels, even if it's biscuits or it's snacks or whatever they call those snacks? Because other people say some of the snacks were sealed in their packet, those chips. The packets were sealed. So it's not the owner of the spaza shop who was sealing them. So which snacks exactly the children or people got sick from? Which are those snacks? Call them, we know them. Let them call them by name. Please. Thanks, JJ Stexprate.
Good morning, Katie and the producer and all the listeners of SAFM. I like to talk about this thing of government is signing now. He said, if you are not supporting your child, he's gonna blacklist you. Yeah, seems like all the men now must pull up the socks because this thing is gonna bind us, like seriously. But government also need to check first, because some of the guy, it doesn't mean like it doesn't want to support, but some of the ladies also doesn't speak the truth. So sometimes they're gonna say to you, I'm single. Well, she knows that she's dating. So sometimes this thing is, yeah, but anyway, we'll see. See you from Cape Town. Thank you.
Princess Cathy!
Good morning to you. Good morning to your team. Great show always. It's good to hear your voice, Cathy. It's Uncle JJ, the truck driver in Western Cape. Cathy, would you please call Minister of Home Affairs, Leon Sheba? We need to know what's going on. ZEPs, they paid a lot of money, they have access to the doctors, they are still waiting for their payment. There's nothing. But he wants to give the Ukraine free visas. Is that fair? Minister of Home Affairs, please, come on. Hey.
Yeah, Uncle JJ, you make a good point when it comes to the ZEP permits and what their future is in the country. We do need some clarity on that issue. Always great to hear from you. I hope you're doing well, Uncle JJ. You're sounding a bit tired. Is it the end year fatigue that's kicking in? Please take it easy on the roads. But yeah, always appreciate your getting in touch. All right, it's time for our financial lesson, shall we call it?
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
Don't look so gloomy, Brian Hirsch.
Cathy, I'm ready for my jingle. I'm not continuing until the jingle comes.
I knew exactly why the look on your face changed. I knew that it had to do with the jingle.
Okay, well, let me just add this. I'm suffering in two ways. Not only am I Kaizer Chiefs supporter, I'm a Man United supporter as well.
Shame.
So you can feel sorry for me.
I should buy you a drink.
You can feel sorry for me.
Well, technically you can take that free bottle of water that you got from the SABC this morning as my contribution to help alleviate your sorrows.
Yeah, but you did give me a contribution last week. It was my birthday and you brought me the most delicious chocolate cake.
I know you love chocolate like me, so we've got lots in common, Brian. Happy belated birthday.
Thanks,
have a good day.
Great day, thank you. Cathy, very simply, medical aids have started to implement from January their increases, and the increases are ranging from 7.5% to 12%. That's frightening, because let me put this in perspective. Someone who's paying 6,000 Rand a month, at these rate increases of around about 9%, in 8 years' time will be paying 12,000. And in 16 years' time, they'll be paying 24,000, and someone paying 15,000 in 16 years will be paying 60,000 Rand a month. Now, when you reach retirement, a lot of your expenses should fall away. You shouldn't have any debt. You should have a home paid for. You won't be saving and saving money and at the same time drawing for retirement. Education costs should be close, if not finished. So all your costs will come down. Your main item of inflation, greater than rates and taxes, greater than petrol, greater than food, will be your medical aid. So the point I'm making to the many listeners today is most medical aids, particularly the discoveries and the other schemes, pay a commission to a broker. And I think and if you don't use a broker, you don't get any reduction. So if you don't use it, you lose it. I think you need to sit not with a financial broker, but with a medical aid consultant, medical aid broker, who can sit down with you and help you evaluate what you do in the years ahead. What a lot of people are doing is now they are downsizing their medical aids because of affordability. They're buying gap cover, which covers only mainly in the hospital the difference that the surgeon charges and what the medical aid tariff is. In some medical aids, they pay 100% of the doctors that work in the hospital, their bills. In some cases, 200, and many of these doctors are charging 500 to 600%. But gap cover and a lower medical aid does not replace a comprehensive medical aid. But so many people may be in the wrong plan. And the only way you can really evaluate the plan you should be in is to sit with this healthcare consultant who can work out, have a look at your claim statistics, have a look at your lifestyle, have a look at the things you can do, and not only create for you a way of reducing costs, because if you don't reduce those costs, someone who's now 50 and planning to retire at 65 has never budgeted for that sort of money to medical aid. And remember, as you get older, your need for medical aid gets greater. So if you're thinking of downsizing, find out the most important thing. What is the difference between the scheme you're on
and the scheme you're planning to go. What is the actual difference? I mean, they talk about prescribed minimum benefits. I think all the schemes have that. They talk about hospitalization. But you know, today you go into hospital, you get out very quickly. Client of mine had a knee operation last Monday. Tuesday she was out. Another client of mine has ended up in hospital. Sadly, pancreatic cancer that's gone to his liver. 2 days later, out of the hospital. So the hospital costs are coming down, but the out-of-hospital costs are coming up. And when you're looking at healthcare, you need to include, you know, healthcare is, there's a whole range of issues relating to healthcare. There's disability insurance, there's dreaded disease insurance, there's gap cover, and there's your medical aid. Someone that in that field needs to look at what you're doing. I think you pay a broker, I think the broker gets about 2 or 3% of the contributions. You don't get a savings. So my advice to you, to listeners, is get hold of a healthcare broker and find out from them what you can do and how you can manage, not just reduce or increase, but how you can manage your healthcare going forward. Because if you don't start that process now, you will run into major problems. I mean, the Council for Medical Schemes has been putting forward low-cost schemes, and low-cost schemes are critical, and it's still not confirmed. Permission has not been given yet for low-cost schemes. I don't know why the Department of Health is dragging their feet over this issue, but it's very important. NHI, which is coming in at some stage there was no mention of NHI in the medium-term budget, but they're going to start implementing parts of it. Government is in discussion with all the major partners in this field, including the medical aids, the hospitals, and they hopefully will find some way forward, because everyone should be entitled in this country, should be entitled to some ability to get health. But your medical aid costs are going up with inflation, and inflation, now even if we get inflation down to 5%, the cost of medication, the cost of new drugs, the cost of what people are now wanting to, the drugs that have not been approved by our medical council but will save people's lives, the medical aids aren't agreeing to them. Just understand, a medical aid, if you take Discovery has a medical aid, and that medical aid's got to run profitably, and they've got to have a reserves of over 25%. They take a fee off that medical aid to fund the administration of that medical aid and to deal with everything. And that's it. The medical aid is a separate entity. And you know, I always think about smaller medical aids, and the main problem is the younger members. Do you want to ask me anything, Cathy? No. The younger members are not going for medical aids. So the cross-subsidization of the years before, where the younger members subsidized the older members, that means the more fortunate subsidized the unfortunate, is now falling away, because the younger members are going for hospital plans and gap cover, and they don't think they need medical aid. So the smaller schemes, you need to make sure that your smaller scheme is getting members, because if it's not bringing on members, in the years to come, they could find that older people who are unhealthy and having more problems and more ailments could run some of those reserves. So if you're in a smaller scheme, just check again with that scheme, their solvency margins and what's happening. So all I'm saying is very important that you've now got November, December to decide what plan you want for the coming year. And it's not only the coming years, it's the years ahead.
Brian, let's pause things there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll continue this conversation with Brian. And of course, later I'll also be taking your contributions. Your calls on 086 000 2032. That'll be the number to dial, 086 000 2032, and on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom.
reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, we continue the conversation with Brian Hirsch. The focus for today on the increasing medical aid costs. And Brian giving us advice around what we need to do at this time of the year as medical aids have then announced their increases for the next financial year.
It's frightening. And not only have they announced the increases...
Just hang on, Brian. Okay, you're back on air.
The co-payments have also gone up. So you've got to understand that not only are you paying for more your medical aid costs, but co-payments which you have to pay over and above your medical aid. So that is why I'm saying don't delay. I've been talking about this now for many years. Don't delay to find with a professional, and we're not talking about a professional, we're talking about a healthcare specialist who can have a look at all the components that make up your health requirements, because in financial planning we talk about estate tax, investment, retirement planning, and when it comes to healthcare you talk a separate item in healthcare planning, understanding, finding ways that you need to do. I mean, if you think about it, if I think of a discovery scheme, when kids get to 21, unless under circumstances they become dependent, and they don't, and on your own medical aid, and really should they be in that plan? So you need to examine the plan you're on, and before you make changes, let me make this one comment. Find out when you change a medical aid from plan A to plan B, what are you giving up? So you understand what you're giving up rather now than when there's some major ailment.
And Brian, because as you were running through some of the numbers earlier, some medical aids have 7% increases, other medical aids have 12% increases. So if one then wants to do shopping around more broadly, just to even maybe change their medical aids and to find out which are the cheaper medical aids, what do they offer versus maybe the medical aid that one may be on now? Is there a central place where we can do that? Who can help us with that?
A healthcare consultant. And then understand a company that's gone up 7% may have a different demographics in their makeup to someone who went up 12%. So you need to understand that, because medical aids, and let me say, there's not a lot of shopping around from scheme to scheme. There's a lot of shopping around within the schemes. I mean, some of the companies have 30, 40 schemes and you can shop around. But how does an individual understand exactly what they're doing? Let me talk about one aspect. Give you an example. I need cataracts. And I went to a particular doctor, and he wants, over and above the medical aid, 60,000 rand. Okay. My secretary had the same problem, and I told her, phone Discovery and find out who is a network doctor. She phoned Discovery, she got 6. She went back to her optometrist, and he was happy with 2 of the 6, and she had it done. She didn't pay a cent. I've now cancelled going through the doctor who's not networked, and I'll go next year through a network doctor. So what I'm saying is, there are network doctors who are brilliant. Just because they're a network doctor linked to the medical aid doesn't make them less capable, less professional than someone. So there is a way you can save a lot of money by using network hospitals and network doctors. Again, get that information on the scheme you're on, so if something happens, you know where to go and what to do.
Do you think that the lack of, and I don't know per se if it's necessarily a lack of competitiveness amongst medical aids, or when it comes to medical aids, has to do with the fact that certain companies automatically are in, relationships with certain medical aid providers, and so if you join company X, then you automatically have to be on medical aid X because that's who they do their business with.
No, there are some schemes that have specific specialists, but the open schemes now, you can go anywhere, but they have networked. I mean, a company like Discovery have about 91% of specialists as network doctors, which means it's going to cost the patient that much less. But you need to have this information, and the individual cannot get this information. You can't get it from ChatGPT and these things. Go and talk. It's not going to cost you any more than talking to a healthcare specialist.
How do the medical aids justify these price increases, Brian?
Well, they have to maintain. They look at their past, their past claims, where the claims are coming from, the age, the aging of the membership, the type of schemes they're on. And today it used to be that if a medical aid had 20 schemes, as long as the overall medical aid was solvent over 25%, there wasn't a problem. Now every scheme within the medical aid is having to review what happened in their medical aid, what was their claims experience like, because they're not a profitable organisation. Don't think Discovery, I'm using Discovery, don't think Discovery is their medical aid. Their medical aid is completely separate to their business. So whatever medical aid, they take a percentage of the contributions.
But Brian, nobody believes that medical aids are not making a killing off of these contributions.
They're not. They're not making a killing because they're covering their costs and they're keeping their solvency margin. The costs are in the administration, and a company A may administer a lot better than company B, and therefore it will make more profits in terms of managing the medical aid. But medical aids are non-profits, and believe it, that is true. They're not there, and if they make additional profits, it stays in the scheme to fund future claims.
I've got lots of questions for you already, Brian. Before I get to those, is there anything else that you want to run us through before I bring the questions?
No, just to repeat what I've said, and repeat this, get some advice. And even if you're...
From who?
From healthcare consultant.
Where do you find them?
I can give, if people want a number, I can give them some numbers of people they can call, because we've dealt this on quite, they can just, when I give my number out, we'll give my email, they can just email me and that type of thing, I can give them things. I've got no vested interest whatsoever. I just have a vested interest in making people understand that they need to do something. Don't be lethargic. You've got time now, November, December, make it your business to find out what you need to do going forward.
Okay, so we're talking finance with Brian Hirsch, and this week focusing on medical aids, medical cover, and some of the associated increases, and how it is that we can perhaps be saving money or better spending our money when it comes to these increasing health costs. I'll be taking your calls after the latest news headlines on 086 000 2032 is the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. You can send your WhatsApp voice notes and text messages there, 0614 104 107.
News headlines at 10:30 on SAFM. I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. A 10-year-old girl from Alexandra in northern Johannesburg is expected to be buried at the weekend. Lisedi Maboi died after allegedly consuming snacks from a nearby spaza shop. 4 suspects who were wanted for murders related to violence in the taxi industry have been killed in a shootout with police in Moya River in KwaZulu-Natal. And snowfall in Lordburg Pass on the N9 near Grafrenet in the Eastern Cape may cause road closure. The Wapatsburg Pass between Grafrenet and Nuba has also been affected. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 47 to the dollar, 22 rand 66 to the pound, and 19 rand 02 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE mainly higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe also mixed this hour. Gold is trading at $2,732, platinum $985 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $75.22 a barrel.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Spend the weekend on a high note with final analysis on Sunday night.
The premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
My name's Michael Forte. I'm 16. I have difficulty paying attention in class, so I fell behind. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. I can't thank them enough. The flexible learning means I can take classes when it suits me, so I get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue talking finance with Brian Hirsch. So, Brian, one message coming through says medical aid decreases. Sorry, let me read that again. Medical aid decreases salaries. Annual salary adjustment is implemented in April if you're lucky, and we only enjoy this increase for about 8 months, because when the medical aid increase is implemented, workers go back to what they were getting paid the previous year, the previous financial year. I guess it's the impact of inflation as well, right?
Yeah. And yes, and you know, the point I made is one can control certain expenses, but if you're unfortunately unhealthy and you rely on your medical aid, you're going to pick up all those costs. But yes, look, medical aids increase in January, most of them. And we had 2 or 3 years ago during COVID when some of the medical aids didn't increase for a couple of months and gave individuals some benefit. But they're now increasing from January, and you may only get your increase. You know, and another area, let me make a comment. At the moment, you get a tax rebate by contributing. If you're under 65, there's a certain amount, few hundred rand per person per month. If you've got children, you can get 800 or 900 rand. It's a direct deduction off your tax. It's not a deduction of your income, it comes off your tax. With NHI, I'm surprised that they haven't done away with that rebate just yet, because they need funds to fund NHI. And that is one way that they're certainly going to do it. So again, that could be, if they do away with that, that's virtually an increase in tax. And for pensioners, it's even worse, because you get a much bigger deduction. There's a formula, it's not exactly the same. It's about 30% of what you've paid in the year for your medical aid and out of hospital benefits. So that falls away. So that's why you've got to start looking at these things, because we do know, and I do believe that at some stage in the future, that benefit will fall away.
All right, let me bring in some of the questions, Brian.
Good run.
Hi Brian, it's Brian. So I want to find out if my medical is Discovery and it's very expensive. Currently paying 5,200. I'm on a classic saver. Then I have an MSA where we can buy anything that we need medically also. So my wife started working. I advised her not to take medical aid. But would you advise me for my wife also to have medical aid, so that at least we can reduce the pressure? So how would you advise a family on medical aid? Should both of us have medical aid, or one person have medical aid, so that it eases the pressure?
Well, let me say this to you. if you're a healthy person, I don't know your age, if you're a healthy person, the one area you should have is always have a hospital plan. At least that pays the cost. We're not talking about elective surgery, we're talking about forced surgery, we're talking about something that happens overnight and the next minute you're in hospital. So you want choice of hospital, so certainly a hospital plan is a minimum. Together with a combined gap cover, that's for you and your wife. I don't know your circumstances, I don't know your age, and that's why I'm suggesting get hold of a healthcare broker. You can go to the FPI, the Financial Planning Institute. You can come to me and ask us. We can give you some numbers. We don't guarantee anything, any relationship between the parties, but we have dealt with many people. I have a broker. And Clayton is his name, and he does everything for me, and he also helps sometimes when I have a problem. It's not the day-to-day problem, so I can't say what you should be on without knowing circumstances, but what I'm saying to you is please contact a healthcare broker. The Financial Planning Institute, the FPI, will put you can phone Discovery, you can phone them and ask them please to introduce you to a broker. They'll do that for you.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Brian. It's Fred the Trucker, Wally Sandawana. I just want to ask, is it considered to be medical aid fraud if I use my medical aid on maybe I say my grandmother or my aunt or my friend for that matter? Is it considered to be a medical aid fraud?
Do you mean?
Yes.
Absolutely. Unless you've had discussions with your medical aid who will allow a mother or a father as a dependent, but you need to have that discussion with them. You can't just start using it for them. But then if you...
How would he be able to do that?
Okay, that's where the doctors play a role. I mean, fraud in medical aids is absolutely rough. The companies are spending millions on trying to prevent fraud. And what our truck driver just said, there's definitely an element of fraud there. I'm a little bit worried that this is going to become my jingle for next week. I'm a bit worried. But yeah, there are terms and conditions. There are members on the medical aid, and anyone who's not a member of the medical scheme you're on and you use those benefits, it's fraud. And if medical aids find out, the consequences are severe.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sis Cathy, can you please ask Brian Hash to please give a day to dedicate himself to this issue of timeshares. I've noticed timeshares comes in as a luxury, but most of companies are using them to exploit people, and it's funny because when you apply for them, they don't even check your credit record, the affordability and all those, but later they will come back with some other new instruction that they never really introduced. And you find, like, when you're asking them, they can't answer you. So may you kindly ask him to dedicate a day for that and touch base on it. Thank you, Gwana.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know too much about timeshare. I know that timeshare is really a luxury item, a luxury purchase. You know, out of the season, out of the 5 weeks in December, January, out of the couple of weeks over Easter, the cost of timeshare is enormous, and you have to pay that levy. And if you try and rent that apartment out of season, you'll find that if you're lucky, you can cover your levy. You know, Cathy, that's something maybe you should deal with at some stage with timeshare and the problems with timeshare and what individuals can do. But it's not, I can tell you, it gives you access at a certain time. Some people have done exceptionally well, again, around about the season. I think of the December season, places like the Sands, the Mhlanga, the Cabanas. I think of Beacon Isle. I think of a couple of places in the Cape, the Peninsula, and various places. Yeah, it's good. But generally, timeshare is a difficult one. And do I advise people now to buy a timeshare? No, I don't advise it.
I was going to say, because there was sort of a boom around timeshare a couple of years ago. Everybody was talking about it as the, new investment thing, timeshare this, timeshare that. And that was actually the question I was going to ask, should this be something that people are invested in?
Can we move off that category? Timeshare is not an investment. Okay. Timeshare is not, although I must say some people use timeshare internationally and they've done their homework, because you can do a timeshare swap, and you may find with the value of the rand and the cost of dollars and other currencies, it may be, the swap may be, but that is where you've done a lot of homework. But the general timeshare, where you offer timeshare, think very carefully about it, because it's not buying it. Doesn't sound expensive. It's having to every year pay that service fee.
Okay. One of our listeners wants to know, he says, I don't understand why the government agreed to have the MPS at 25%. Is it MPs or MPS? At 25% of contributions. If you don't get admitted at a hospital, 75% of the contributions is the medical scheme profit. That's from Lakadush.
No, Lakadush, I'm going to try and make sense of exactly what you've said. I said medical aids have to have a solvency margin of 25%. They have to have reserves in their medical aid of 25%. They can the balance then, the 75% has got to then fund all those claims in the year. So if a medical aid is receiving 100 million, they've got to have in their reserve account 25 million. And now, can that 75 million that they now have, will that cover all their costs of medical aids? And that's what concerns me about the smaller medical aids that are not getting on new members and not creating that cross-subsidisation, because the younger members are not buying sophisticated medical aids. They're sticking with hospital cover, and you maybe including a bit of chronic if they need it, and buying some gap cover. Yes, the cost is very much lower, but you need to understand what you're not getting, and that's why I say, I'll repeat it, before you make a change, ask the healthcare broker, what am I losing by moving from scheme A to scheme B, which is saving me 8,000 rand a month, 100,000 rand a year? What am I losing? And that'll give you the answer. You're not losing hospital benefits, you're not losing certain other benefits, but the other benefits that you can fund yourself. You then become your own funder of those extra costs.
Skosana, you're calling us from Durban. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Wonderful, my dear, wonderful. My opinion on the whole entire thing, I agree with Mr. Hirsch there that the medical aids themselves are non-profit organizations. But the problem is the administrators that they actually sign up with. I think a huge portion of one's contribution actually goes to those companies. Some of the companies are posting large amounts of profits. They're actually JSE listed. So it's like a loophole that these guys have actually found around it. I think that's the main reason why even government actually want to get into the health space. It's a lucrative space, keeping people alive. And there's just like large sums of money sitting there. I do think that medical aids are not the good guys in this sort of thing. I think we often get sold this perception. Unfortunately, it's essential. I have medical aid myself, but I don't really trust the whole industry, honestly speaking. That's just my contribution to the discussion.
Well, thank you for that. Look, you're absolutely right. A medical aid takes somewhere around about 10% of the contributions. So if we had a member talking about he's paying 5,600. They take 560 rand. That's pooled with everyone else's 10%, and it's how sophisticated and how capable the administration are to make big profits. And they do make big profits. I'm not crying for medical aids. I mean, there are quite a few we don't cry for. But the medical aid itself, the fund is there to pay claims. And yes, you're right. If you're a healthy person, you'll say, I've had no use. My medical aid has cost me. It's the same with insurance. If you've got motor insurance or householders insurance or fire insurance, if you don't have a fire, you've wasted your premium. And I'm not saying you want to fire, but I'm saying with medical aid the same. But that means if you're not claiming a lot, maybe you're on the wrong scheme, and then maybe you've got to do some self-funding. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not just all the same medical aid for everyone. Everyone's got different circumstances. And today, when you look at the costs, the hospitalization costs, the cost that doctors charge, the drug costs, the cost of chemotherapy, all those things, you ask, you're talking from a strength of being a healthy person. I'm sure we could have a lot of people phone on this program and tell them what great service they got. I know of one case, I can tell you right now, twins born prematurely, cost Discovery 8 million rand.
What?
Twins born prematurely, 8 million rand.
How many weeks were the twins?
I don't know. I just know the number.
That is crazy.
Yeah. A client of ours had a fall in America, an older guy in his early 80s, ended up in hospital. He was in hospital for 3 months. It cost Discovery 5 million rand. So I'm saying, yes, they're wonderful. They may, you may say, well, for these little claims, but certainly for catastrophe, and that's why you need to understand, I want to be covered for catastrophe. I don't need to be covered. And you can always, by the way, which I always find amazing, you can upgrade a medical aid, which I think is selection against a company. If you're in a lower plan and you suddenly find that you've got a problem, you can actually upgrade. They can't stop you upgrading. So there is selection against that company because now you've got a health problem and you're upgrading. So
that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. So it's not all. I'm not here to support medical aids. My job today is just to make listeners aware that you need to do something. Don't be lethargic and say my medical aid went up 8%, I've done nothing. Start now. You don't have to do it all by the end of December, but over the next 12 to 18 months, make sure you know where you're going, because the numbers I've given you are not made up. A 6,000 medical aid in 8 years will be costing 12,000, and in another 8 years will be costing 24, and a 15,000 rand medical aid in 16 years will cost 60,000 rand.
Is the bubble not going to burst at some point and reset?
Well, look, maybe NHR will come in, but he talks about, when you think about it, hospitals are still going to have to charge the same. Doctors are not going to be just working at some ridiculous fee. We've got quality doctors in this country. Drugs don't go down. Drugs go up. If the rand depreciates, we import a lot of drugs. Those drugs. So all those things. So I'm not an expert in medical aid. I'm an expert in financial planning, and that means I look at your budget, I look at what you're expending, and I can tell you right now that between medical aid, rates and taxes, electricity and transport, that makes up nearly 35 to 40% of individuals' cost. And if you say inflation's running at 5% and that 40% is running at 9 to 10%, that means your inflation rate is actually running at 6.5 to 7.5%. Be aware of that.
Let me go to Sizwe in Polokwane. Sizwe, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Brian. How are you doing?
Fine, Sizwe.
So I've been following the convo quite intently, and I just had maybe 1 or 2 points to add to the discussion.
Thank you.
I fully agree that I think the choice of medical aid is a very important one. And the first thing I would say is that I think there are far too many people who are on a medical aid and aren't actually exactly aware of not so much what they qualify for, but what they're excluded from. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that people come across, is you think you're on a plan, something happens, and you realize at that moment that you actually aren't covered for this. So the first input would be to say exactly what you're saying. People should know exactly what they're covered for, but also what they're not covered for. The second thing I want to talk about is this issue of network doctors and DSPs, and I quite like the example you gave involving your own personal experience. I've got some thoughts around this issue of network doctors and DSPs. In essence, my overall feeling is it tends to take the choice away from the patient as to who they want their service provider to be. You sort of told, this is the pool you must choose from. Like, I like Dr. A, and he's not in the pool. I can't go to Dr. A, but I have to pay extra to go to him. Now, the issue with that is, it then brings the question into play, well, what does Dr. B have to do in order to be part of this pool, right? And there's a number of different questions that just get raised. Quality aside, I think all the doctors that we have are fantastic, But what is it that Dr. B agrees to with the medical aid in order to be part of the pool that Dr. A doesn't agree to? Now, part of it involves choices of drugs, part of it involves length of stay in hospital, but all of those ultimately could potentially have a chance to impact on your outcome. So I'm not so happy about the issue of metropolis and DST, but it's something that if somebody wants to choose a plan, they need to be clear on. You know, if you're in Joburg, Cape Town, or Durban, you might have a million doctors to choose from. But if you're in the sticks out where, say, Kuruman, and you're on a plan, there might not be one doctor to choose from. And now to be forced by your plan to have a medical doctor, it just sort of, I don't know, speaks to a little bit of infringement on the patient's right to choose, free from the extra financial burden of exercising their choice. So the last thing I want to say is that as per the Medical Schemes Act, there are a number of conditions which you alluded to earlier, P and B, which as far as I understand means that every single plan registered in this country allowed to operate has to cover these conditions as prescribed minimum benefits in order to be granted a license. And so if these are freely available on any website, you just Google P&B in South Africa, you get a list of them, and each medical aid is obliged to cover investigation, medical management, plus minor surgery if needed for these conditions. And so nobody should be rejected for any of those conditions, provided that the scheme is legally operating in this country. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Just a question. Are you a healthcare consultant? Sorry?
Yes.
You are a healthcare consultant. And what?
Yes.
Where do you operate?
In Polokwane.
In Polokwane. He's in Polokwane.
Yes.
You're in my hometown, Sizwe.
Yeah, I need to say that. No. Sorry, I'm not a healthcare consultant. I'm a healthcare provider. I'm a healthcare practitioner.
Okay, so listen, we don't recommend anyone in this program, but the fact that you've got knowledge, and I've heard from what you've said, you're the type of individual healthcare consultant that people come in. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Give your number out. What is your number?
So what again? Sorry, I'm not a healthcare consultant. I'm a healthcare provider, so I'm a doctor.
Okay.
I see.
Okay.
I
Doctor,
see.
let me just make one comment about network doctors. The reason many of the practitioners have become networks is because the collection of their premiums are so much easier. They don't run into bad debts. And today, so many doctors do run private practices. They now insist, obviously, that you pay up front with a credit card. But in years gone by, there were enormous amounts. I know of an orthopedic surgeon who's carrying a book of 8 million rand. So I hear, and also you have a choice. You don't have to use it. It's not compulsory. There's some schemes that you have to. The lower schemes say you have to use network doctors. But at the top end of healthcare, you have a choice. I had a choice. I didn't even know about network doctors till I came back and said to my PA, I can't believe what I'm going to have to pay over and above my medical aid. So I hope that helps you. But doctor, thank you for joining us this morning.
If I may quickly, so I took a principled decision not to be in any network. I like the comfort of knowing that anybody who walks in my door has chosen to come to me and hasn't been sort of directed there by their plan. But you know, on the issue of even the extra costs, the provider is obliged to declare to you at the beginning of the consultation whether they're going to charge more or less in the medical schemes, and that shouldn't take anybody by surprise. So over and above choosing the kind of plan and going to seek medical help, I'd advise everybody to have that honest and upfront discussion with the provider before anything starts.
Yeah. And Susie, you haven't found that you've been disadvantaged by not being on a network? You don't get less clients?
So whichever you look at it, I'm in a reasonably, let's say, small town, and so you know, I still get reasonable traffic in my front door. And even on the collection side, I've got a fantastic company that does my collections, and I haven't found that I've been, discriminated against. If there is, let's say, for example, questions around claims, which happens across all schemes and platforms,
okay.
The guys who do my collections are on the ball, and I don't feel I'm short-changed.
Okay, Sizwe, thanks for calling in, and thank you for that contribution.
Cathy, if I can make a comment, what happened was my optometrist sent me to this for my eyes, sent me, and he's not contracted in, he's not networked, and he gave me a price. Then when I went to Discovery and I asked him for network doctors, I went back to my optometrist and said, I've got 2 names. 6 names. She was very happy with 2 of the names. So I'm just trying to say there was some... excuse me.
Okay. All right. Let me give you a chance to recover there. Patrick, you're in Davidton. Good morning.
Morning, ma'am. Yeah, my question was this, I have my salary advisement. Every month they deduct money going to GEPF. GEPF. I also took a policy of a retirement annuity. Now, my question is, as and when I go to retirement, am I going to get some money monthly basis from GPF or from GEPF? Am I going to get some money from the policy that I've taken off a retirement annuity separate? That's my question.
Okay, good question, and well done to you for adding to your GEPF pension fund by taking out a retirement year. Yeah, you get from each one. From the GEPF, you have to retire at a certain date. Under your retirement annuity, you can retire any date after 55, and you will get all the benefits from both investments.
Okay, Patrick, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, sure. No, it's all right, madam. Thank you.
All right, Patrick. Thanks for calling in here. The hour has just simply flown by. Thank you, Brian. A very insightful topic, and I know that a lot of our listeners have also been responding positively to it in terms of the information shared. We've come to the end of the show. Your number, please, Brian?
My number is 011-880-4888. 011-880-4888, and if you want to send a note and let me know where you're calling from, you can always email me at info@anchorcapital.co.za. That's info@anchorcapital.co.za, and maybe we can give you a few names in your area where you may be able to talk to someone about your own healthcare plan.
Fantastic. Brian Hirsch back again next week Tuesday between 10 and 11 o'clock. For now, we're going to take a quick break, and then that'll lead us into the 11 o'clock news update.
Friday weekend on a high note with final analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Theodora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
Channel is detached, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As coach Alicia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Utad Omabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, overnight oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Top stories at 11. Solidarity makes an appeal to the finance minister and wanted suspects in taxi violence shot dead in KZN. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana and a very good morning. Trade Union Solidarity has called on Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to conduct thorough background checks before nominating the next chairperson and trustee of the Government Employees Pension Fund. This follows the resignation of Dondo Mohlahlana amid allegations of bribery linked to the collapse of the VBS Mutual Bank. The bank's former chairperson, Chifua Matodzi, claims to have paid Mohlahlana 1 million rand bribe. Solidarity's Renate Peterse says they welcome Mohlahlana's resignation.
It's really powerful positions that he held, and the fact that he was this sworn statement, even though he claims now it's from a convicted criminal, it is a testimony that will be tested in court that it was made under oath. So we can't have a person sitting on this powerful positions at the GPF, which is the 30th largest pension fund in the world, having such allegations brought against him without him being removed. So we really put pressure on the minister, but unfortunately it took 4 months, and then Dondo Mohlahlana did the right thing according to us.
A 10-year-old girl from Alexandra in northern Johannesburg is expected to be buried at the weekend. Lesedi Maboy died after allegedly consuming snacks from a nearby spaza shop. Her mother is still in hospital and her sibling has been discharged after allegedly consuming the same snacks. Naria Tlahuta reports.
Lesedi Maboy is expected to be laid to rest in Burgersford in Limpopo. Her father says preparations for the funeral are already underway. Following her passing, the community of Alexandra closed down that spaza shop she allegedly bought the snacks from. The shop has since been demolished by the residents and police investigations are underway. Neria Shakutza, SABC News, Alexandra.
4 suspects who were wanted for murders related to violence in the taxi industry have been killed in a shootout with police and Moireva in KwaZulu-Natal. Provincial police spokesperson Robert Netuunda says one of the suspects was a 40-year-old man who was wanted in connection with the shooting of a chairperson of a taxi association and his deputy in Bergville earlier this year. Netuunda says the man was also wanted in connection with the attempted murder of a taxi owner in Winterton.
Police intercepted the suspect's vehicle on the N3 highway and signaled for the driver to stop. However, the driver sped off and took the lead court turn off, joining the R103 road towards Escort. During the high-speed chase, suspect fired shots at the police, and in order to protect themselves and other road users, police returned fire, and during the shootout, 4 suspects who were the occupants in the vehicle were shot and fatally wounded. 2 firearms, a rifle and a pistol, as well as ammunition were found in the possession of the suspects.
Snowfall in Lordburg Pass on the N9 near Grafrenet in the Eastern Cape may cause road closure. The Wapertsburg Pass between Grafrenet and Nuba has also been affected. This as extreme inclement weather conditions persist across the province. The authorities have advised motorists to be cautious. Rapid response teams remain on high alert. Provincial Transport spokesperson Unati Bingose says the weather poses a risk to road infrastructure.
We are keeping a close eye on the affected mountain passes by this unusual snowfall. Those are Lordsburg Pass as well as Wapertsburg Pass. They are in the Karoo area of Grafrenet. Of course, these rains are also posing a challenge to our road infrastructure, particularly in rural areas. So we are calling on road users to be extra vigilant at all times.
In international news, the first ballots of Election Day have been cast at Dixville Notch in New Hampshire, continuing its tradition of midnight voting. Concerns about adverse reaction to election results have led to increased security. Barriers have been erected outside the White House and elsewhere in Washington. Several states have also put the National Guard on standby. Meanwhile, the BBC's John Sudworth looks at some of the major policy differences between Harris and Trump.
The economy is, as always, the big issue. Donald Trump has radical plans to impose sweeping tariffs of 60% on Chinese goods and up to 20% on all other imports. Kamala Harris says that would be a disaster. On foreign policy too, she's widely seen as far more predictable. Yet, despite the concern in European capitals, for example, over Mr. Trump's signals that he might reduce military aid to Ukraine, it's unclear what a second Trump term in the White House would mean in practice. One of the clearest policy differences is over abortion. Key swing states like Georgia now have tight restrictions on the procedure. Ms. Harris has promised to pass legislation restoring choice as a federal right.
Recapping the top story, trade union Solidarity has called on Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to conduct thorough background checks before nominating the next chairperson and trustee of the Government Employees Pension Fund. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 11:30 with Dineum Daung.
Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Cathy and Police FM listeners, good morning. My name is Tulani Nzuma in Croydon. Cathy, how I wish I had taken a gap cover a long time ago, just a couple of weeks or so ago. My wife has been in hospital. It was gallstone. They ended up removing the gallbladder. Ended up with a bill of about 230 odd thousand. Medical aid only covered about 190 odd. Left with a bill of 35,000 because some of the doctors, especially the specialists, they were charging 500 plus percent, then all of that, whereas the scheme only pays 100%. It's just so annoying, but unfortunately, it's a procedure that had to be done. 3 weeks and all of that. Yeah, NHI must come with immediate effect.
Hi, Cathy, Brian and listeners. Just on Freddie the Trucker's comment, I also just like to comment on something that happened to me. I once went to the pharmacy. My son was sick. Now he's on my wife's medical aid, and I was asking the pharmacist, do you have something for the child? How old is he? He was 13. Okay, use this. And I said, okay, no, please just put it on medical aid. And he looked at me with big eyes and said, yeah, but is he on a medical aid? I said, no. And it didn't cross my mind because I thought, oh, I'll just get it. And then he said, no, but it shouldn't. You shouldn't. He's not a member. But he put it on anyway. So just like to comment that I was actually because it never crosses your mind. I won't take him to the doctor, my medical aid, but it was just, in the spur of the moment that I didn't give it any thought. I was actually surprised, and now it makes sense.
Sorry, Manas Cathy, Hagip Happy. I know you've already taken my call, Mara. Let us fix the country. I would advise Untate to check his subscriptions every 2 days. Cancel all your subscriptions and you check them every 2 days. When you open the internet and there's a pop-up there, you cancel that pop-up. Apparently you are subscribing, right? Even with the ones that are sent to you by your network provider. I had it happen to me a few days ago. I cancelled on something, I rejected something MTN had sent me. 5 minutes later, I'm subscribed to something that is charging me 15 rands a day. So please check your subscriptions every 2 days. The networks are disgusting for allowing this to happen.
Hi, Cathy, this is KM. Liberation movements are no longer relevant as we speak. In the 21st century, these liberation movements are no longer relevant, because most of the members of the movements, they are corrupt. They are actually captured by corruption. And then most of the people are left with poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And they are just there to enhance themselves, to make themselves rich over the struggles of the people. So they are not relevant at all. Thank you very much.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
We're leading the conversation on the talking point. You've tuned into the final hour of the show for this morning, and the last conversation we're going to be getting into is around the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation. And this is particularly for government programs, right? And how exactly do they go about doing their job? So within their annual report, they recently shared some of the financials for the 2023-24 year, and they were in Parliament last week presenting some of their findings and outlining that 95% of targets had been met. The report also laying out the state of monitoring and unpacking some of the visits that the department has made to schools, hospitals, special economic zones, a progress report on the district development model, as well as other sectors of government. Well, joining us for this conversation is Cathy Mohlahlana, who is the Deputy Minister in the Presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation. Mr. Mohlahlana, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and greetings also to the listeners.
So, if we look at your presentation before Parliament, that shows, targets of 95% being met. What does that mean in as far as the actual running of projects by government is concerned? Does it mean that 95% of government projects that are being tracked by the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation are 95% on track? Or does it mean something else? And please clarify.
Well, what we say in KP is that our environment as a department of DPME, Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, we are operating in an environment where our country is known that there is a serious assault on poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And what we do is aimed at making a contribution. So we are not monitoring for the sake of monitoring, and whether you are in the front line or middle line, we always remember that there are people's lives that has to change. So what we are trying to relate to in Parliament was that in our work of building coherence of government, it must have clarity and a common vision. It must have an institutionalized planning, in this instance, long-term planning 2030, and also looking into the current MDDP, that its priorities, and looking into integrated monitoring systems and enhancing really critical areas of progress, identifying critical areas of programs in government that require attention without losing a point that the state requires capacity, and it should be an ethical state. So we're relating to those issues that this is work in progress that we are doing in government, vis-a-vis our budget that we are allocated, that we had to focus on issues like what does the department do in the sector monitoring branch, which produces in-depth reports on performance of government in specific sectors. In this instance, we commission some reports. Some reports give us a mixed results that we may not be making progress on other areas, but the impact that is desired, we have to make that intervention. And we also recall that this year there was, in April, the President announced the 30-year review report of South Africa, which was largely facilitated discussions around society, academics, policymakers in government, and also in institutions of higher learning, which is an ongoing matter to reflect exactly on progress that the country is making. So we also produces these biannual monitoring reports to advise the President and Cabinet on the performance of government against the medium-term strategic framework
which now is shifting into the medium-term development framework. As you'll recall that the President asserted that we need to have a common understanding and a common vision as government of national unity. So we also produce sector-specific reports to reflect on performance of government in the implementation of key projects and programs. This is a point that we are making. Does this translate into excellence? In other ways, yes, when line function department produces their final policy and implementation plan, they benefit from areas of observation that is made by the department, because we also house evaluation and knowledge system branch, which evaluates critical government programs with the intention to improve policy implementation and development impact. So the issue of data analysis, also the fact that we evaluate on critical programs with the intention to improve policy implementation, it's a very important work that we do. So there are areas which the department has been called to more pronounced action. For instance, that we need to act much more urgently in a manner of intervening early in terms of the report so that it doesn't take too long for the impact to be fair.
So Mr. Mohai, I don't think that I'm very clear, unfortunately, even after that answer, around then how you as the department centralize the opinion that you're giving on the efficiency and the functioning of government. So I understand that you look at different markers, you look at different departments, what they're doing. But when you as a department then come out and say 95% of targets have been met, what does that mean? Does that mean that internally within the department of monitoring and evaluation, you've been able to do 95% of the things that you wanted to do? Or does it mean that the cumulative assessment of where government is in terms of the projects that are being run and the mandate of the department for oversight and for monitoring, that you put that figure then at 95% of work that is being done?
Okay. Now I understand, Katie. I think there are two things that we need to mention. When we are counted in Parliament, we are counting as a department of DPME in terms of its internal mechanisms. Is the department structured in a manner that responds to its tasks? And this all what I've highlighted. I've highlighted the programs in the department where we have been spending. For instance, I'm highlighting that we do have what we call citizen-based monitoring. We do have presidential hotline. We do work with the local government partnership with other departments. We do program plannings. So we deal with those areas. So it's internal. And you would have heard, even in Parliament, there was an agreement that it is important for the department that operates, that cuts across in its operation like DPME. We also not highlight specific reports it has conducted, but to have the second report that talks of its overall impact into government. But for now, the report that we're giving an account on, it was based on the work that as a department we are doing. What does it mean to alter the way government does things by fostering a focus and a result-oriented way of working in government? So when we're talking about the programs which are funded in the department and how do we want to impact on the whole government.
So one of the things that one would expect is sitting with the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation is a repository of sort when it comes to what citizens have to say about the experience of service delivery, but also the actual oversight over departments in fulfilling the policy agenda as things were, which is currently aligned to NDP, as you mentioned, 2030, because that's been broken down into medium-term frameworks that every department is given. But one never really knows where departments are with those targets, and it does very much feel that every time there's a change of administration, there's also a change of focus, in terms of implementation of policy. We don't get a sense of continuity and clarity around how exactly policy is being implemented to even get us on track for 2030 with the NDP.
This is what the department has been focusing on, Cathy, that the systems of planning should be well developed. When the NDP defines a long-term plan of the country, what happens every 5 years? I think that's a point that we are raising. So that every 5 years, we systematically introduce a plan based on the manifestos and outcomes of elections. This is the point that we are making, that post-election, 2024 election, through the President's inaugural address and the State of the Nation address, there is a new commitment in the country by all who participated in the elections when a government is established to say, what are the priorities which the Lone Star remains NDP, that in the next 5 years we are going to focus at? What are we going to do in terms of inclusive economic growth and job creation, reducing the cost of living, ensuring that we scale up the skill capability of our country to respond to the task at hand? This is what the department is doing. More recently, also, in many other things which could be constituted, which can be either a form of a disaster or critical programs, the department now aligns its plan in accordance to looking into these critical programs so that there is consistency, there is change and continuity. We do not discuss areas because the issue of job creation remains a point as it was in the sixth government. It is a priority that should be addressed now, but there should be a change in terms of agency. So this is what the department does in its various programs of evaluation and also putting a national evaluation policy framework which guide how evidence is generated and used to inform decision. This is a point that I think we need to deal with, where DPME, because other than contained in the 2030 report, we scaled down that what is it that was achieved in the 10-year, in the 20 and the 30 year, first decade, the second and the third decade, with regard to government performance. It's summarized in that report. But we need to, on an annual basis, where we are able to flag progress that we are making overall in terms of government, not inward looking of the department, which we're doing in Parliament. In Parliament, we're doing the inward looking of the department, but we also get an agency to say that our department, despite the fact that it's a department that is in existence from 2012, it's important that it strengthens its ability to institutionalize many of the operations, so such that when we talk to you like now, when we say that to give us a sense of where government is, we are able to we can provide that information, but we're looking inwardly into the programs that are financed as is required by PFMA in terms of Parliament, accounting to Parliament about which programs were financed by the DPME, which reports were commissioned. But the important issue we agree with is to talk about the impact of those reports that has been released, not in terms of just highlighting them.
Is that, Mr. Mohai, is that not a problem though? Because if one goes back to the establishment of this department in the first place, it was supposed to provide this sort of overview of the progress of government departments and to help streamline the work that different departments are doing, because sometimes you find departments are operating in silos, and bringing in the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation was supposed to help them with breaking some of these silos and truly having a more collaborative approach within government in solving some of society's issues. So if you're saying that it's one of the things that the department wants to do, then one has to ask, what are you doing right now? I mean, is there a point to having the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation right now if that's not in essence what is happening?
There are specific programs that the department has dealt with that impact broadly government, Cathy. The department, for instance, looking to Pillar 6 of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, and undertakes a study and collaborate with the Department of Women, Youth and Children. The department does an evaluation of National Food and Nutrition Security Plan 2018-2023, which is instrumental in forming the development of the next phase of this plan for the period 2024 to 29. This is critical given its relevance and major gaps that South Africa faces on nutrition security. So, in other words, in collaborating with the Department of Agriculture, it leads in taking this forward. The issue of land restitution program. Very, very key studies conducted that recommended measures to accelerate restitution and priorities of land development. We also engage in a study on evaluation of youth employment creation programs. We have dealt with these studies so as to undermine fragmentation and limited impact on youth employment programs. So this is a strong case for consolidating some of the existing programs in order to enhance the overall design and as well as the implementation and impact. So we deal with these things. These exist. These are areas on their own that require presentation on what is it that is our finding when we deal with evaluation and the implementation of the white paper on persons with disability. What are the important insights on the gains thus far on how certain initiatives benefit persons with disability can be sustained? We do also appreciate that we do not replace the existence of the department, but we target these important policy areas that need to be re-looked into that are important. That's why also the department takes keen interest, for instance, to deploy its expertise to work with national, provincial, and local government stakeholders, so that when we deal with issues, for instance, throughout government, the department introduced COVID-19 era, the report, which raised what are important lessons, what happened in that period when responding to a crisis. Why shouldn't we sustain some of the mechanisms that we used that existed that ensure agility of government to respond to key developmental areas? So those are the key areas that we can't fail in terms of looking at as a department to ensure that some agency is injected in the way of doing things overall in government.
One of our listeners is asking, what are the programs that upon evaluation have been found to not be meeting their goals and objectives in government right now?
Some of the things that we find out is that you find that there are many programs but which is resulting to less objectives that when we implement, because of collaboration, that we really need to operate in a much more clinical fashion. That's why when we emphasize on the frontline monitoring, when we look into institutionalization of the program, it discards so many things that should not be there, so that there is no repetition of programs that are done across spheres of government, but there is coordination in terms of implementing our policy positions without any hindrance. So there are a couple of areas that in the evaluation programs, in frontline monitoring, are revealed. For instance, in looking on the development zones, economic development zones, the department picked up that there are many other areas where it is found that in the economic development zone, you may find that there has been lack of interaction with state-owned enterprises in a manner that responds to the skill set that is required to initiate those. In many other times, you find that skills that are supposed to initiate these technical areas of economic activity are not requisite skills. And DPME has to point out to those issues in discussing with the line function department. So when we do frontline monitoring, it's genuinely to pick on programs that exist problems that exist and why we should not take time in terms of not addressing or providing a necessary remedy in dealing with those issues.
Okay. Mr. Mohai, we're going to have to leave it there for today. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time for the conversation. He's the Deputy Minister in the Presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation. It's 11:30, time for your latest news headlines.
For the headlines at 11:30, I am Dino Mutaung. Good morning. The Fort Tracker Monument in Pretoria has been painted orange as scores of members of Labour Group, AfriForum and Trade Union Solidarity gathered ahead of their march against the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, BELA. In other news, Trade Union Solidarity has called on Finance Minister Inoko Dongwana to conduct thorough background checks before nominating the next chairperson and trustee of the Government Employees Pension Fund. And a South African who is a naturalized US citizen says the prospect of having a first president with black and Indian heritage who's also a woman is prompting a surge in voters. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield, Ramanda Masha. They all believe Ubutukusoba right, Uba bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi! Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
There's never a dull moment when South Africa share the cricket field with India. Africa takes on Asia at the battleground of Kingsmead in Durban. What is summer without cricket? Catch the thrilling first T20 international action between South Africa and India on Friday, 8 November at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC 3 and 5 p.m. on Radio 2000 with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, as we continue to track the year of elections, one of the biggest elections taking place is, of course, in the U.S. And voters in that country will be heading to the polls to make their mark. The question, who will it be? The former President Donald Trump or the current Vice President Kamala Harris? And we've been taking then time to reflect on the U.S. elections in the series of conversations that we've had, and we are going to continue the final installment of that conversation. I spoke to, of course, Mr. Rodney Davis, who's a former member of the U.S. Congress from Illinois and a managing director at Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies, and Jason Altmaier, who is a former member of the House of Representatives from Pennsylvania, also author of critically acclaimed book Dead Center: How Political Polarization Divided America and What We Can Do About It. So both these individuals, Davis Republican, O'Connor Democrat, weighed in on the race, and I started this aspect of the conversation by asking them if there is consensus when it comes to escalating conflicts around the world, and what the role then of policy and the outlook of foreign policy is going to be in this particular election.
You know, that is a great question. Is the nation as divided as the candidates? I think it is. But I think there's always a time you can look back to in American history where a foreign policy issue may have a wide range of support during one presidential election, but in the next presidential election, it could be split evenly, or it could be a wide range of opposition. I think the nation right now is evenly split on foreign policy issues as we've seen them in past presidential elections. And I think that's indicative of our polarized nation as a whole. Unfortunately, we're very split right now on not just foreign policy issues, but issues that are relative to domestic concerns here in the United States also. So I do believe it's split, unfortunately. I don't believe we have as much consensus on foreign policy issues because those issues now are decided via social media and via media coverage just as much as domestic issues have been in the past. And I don't know if that's good for the long-term foreign policy objectives of either candidate and whomever wins.
Jason?
I think there are two groups when you think about America being polarized and political disagreement. And the first group, which is a much smaller group, is the group of people who are very politically active. The group of people who wake up every day thinking about politics, thinking about what the United States Congress is doing, what the president is doing, how the presidential campaign is shaping up. Now we're getting closer to the election. More people are paying attention. But for the most part, most Americans reside in that second group. And the second group is most of America. And that's a group of people that don't think about politics very often. They are worried about what activities their children have this week, how their work schedule looks, who their sports team is going to play this weekend, much more than they're thinking about what is Congress working on or what is my local politician thinking at that moment. As we get closer to the election, those two groups converge. But I would disagree a little bit with my friend Rodney that I do think most of America would like a functioning government that can work together, that can compromise and get along. They don't root for conflict. They don't live in a world where they're inherently polarized. We do have many forces in this country, which I could get into if you would like, but there are many different ways that people are directed into their corners on the political left and the political right. And when that debate plays out, yes, there's extreme polarization and disagreement and even quite a bit of nastiness in our campaigns in America. But I do think most of America wants the country to come together in a way that, yes, they may disagree on some issues, but we can at least have a functioning government. And I think that is going to play into the perception of these two candidates. Vice President Harris, in her past, has a political record that is very partisan, very polarizing. She has changed many of her positions to appear more centrist because she's trying to reach out to that second group that I just mentioned specifically. That's where any remaining undecideds are. President Trump, in my opinion, has made no effort whatsoever to reach out to that group. He continues to do what he's doing. It is, he has been elected president before. It has worked for him in the past. But these two candidates are taking very different approaches to trying to achieve some sort of support within, I think, that second group of Americans who are now starting to pay attention to politics, but for the most part, they don't really live and breathe in that world every day.
How does this position America's role, particularly in some of the ongoing conflicts that are taking place in different parts of the world? And Rodney, you made the point that sometimes what we see happening is also driven by the individual personalities of either the presidents or even the presidential candidates. But I think I can think back to a time where there did seem to be some broad consensus among American society about, well, let's reduce the number of conflicts that the country's involved in. Let's pull out of the conflicts. Let's bring the forces home because you've got, those that are fighting abroad, and the impact of families really was brought to the fore, and how families just wanted to also end almost their own suffering. We have a conflict unfolding in Ukraine. We have a conflict taking place in the Middle East. Do you think that has changed that dynamic, Rodney?
I don't think it's completely gone, but I think the dynamics have changed, as I mentioned earlier. We now see war and conflict covered in real-time analysis. You don't have to look back too far actually it is pretty far now that I think how old I am and how old Jason and I are. But the first Gulf War, George H.W. Bush came out with a 91% approval rating at the beginning of that conflict, and then lost the next presidential election to President Clinton because that 91% support could not be sustained. We saw conflicts after September 11th, and this is a day that is etched into every one of us here in the United States of America as to what happened so many years ago this day. But you also witnessed the lack of support near the end of the Iraq War, and frankly, the disastrous pullout that the Biden administration approved that led to the loss of numerous American lives in Afghanistan. So those decisions have an impact long-term on the psyche of American voters when it comes to the importance of, should we go elsewhere to deal with the problem that they may think is theirs and not ours? And does it force a voter to look more inward? Does it force a voter to become more isolationist? The results will tell, because frankly, when you look at President Trump, he has become somewhat of an isolationist. And that's a surprise, considering some of the most successful aspects, in my opinion, of his presidency were in the foreign policy arena.
Jason, anything you want to add?
Foreign policy is very important to think about in this election, but also in just America's role around the world. And there are a few ways to look at it. One is military conflicts that are ongoing. You mentioned regional conflicts, Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Gaza, and the Middle Eastern region more broadly. And in America, I would say there's widespread consensus and agreement in support of Ukraine. I don't think there's much of a constituency for being pro-Russia in that engagement. And there is support for Ukraine, both in words, but also in actions and in finances, for providing financial support. With regard to Israel and Gaza, I would personally say the support is much more so towards Israel in America. However, there is a very loud, vocal, and noticeable group supporting the rights of people living in Gaza. There is a difference of opinion on the approach that Israel has taken. I know there is a difference of opinion among many in South Africa on that question. But I'm just giving you the political lay of the land in America. I think the support for Israel remains strong. And that is something when you think about foreign policy. There are other nations that have differences of opinion that are outside the Middle East, and they are our allies, and we need to think about how that relationship is affected by those differences. And as Rodney said, President Trump has taken an increasingly loud voice in this concept of America first. What he means is America should be the leader around the world, not only in playing a role in resolving conflict and preventing conflict, as he has said would be his goal, but also thinking about American trade, the tariffs that he has recommended, America's role militarily around the world, and he views it as his role as a political leader and potentially the next president of the United States returning to the White House to make all political decisions with the goal of putting what he perceives to be the rights and the benefits to America first and foremost, whereas many other political leaders believe that America does have a role around the world as a leader and assisting other countries, both with humanitarian aid and financial assistance, but also when it's called for military assistance. Throughout our history, we have been able to do that. So I do think there's a strong difference of opinion on those types of foreign policy issues.
Jason, for us here at the southernmost tip of Africa watching these elections, what would you say we need to be looking at? Because, of course, we do have interests, and both these candidates, regardless of who wins, will set the tone for America's relationship with the rest of the world, and South Africa is not going to be exempt from that.
Absolutely. The people in South Africa, I'm sure, are just generally interested in the race, the presidential race in America, because it's interesting personalities. It's important to everybody around the world who leads the United States. But I think uniquely, South Africa has an interest because we do, as we've touched on a little bit here, we do have a disagreement on some foreign policy issues between our countries. We are active trading partners. The U.S. has an estimated $26 billion in goods and services trade between South Africa and the United States. That's a sizable portion, certainly of South Africa's trade, but also of the U.S.'s trade. We have been allies, we are friends, and these two candidates have a very different view of America's role in the world, as we just discussed at length. And when you think about issues related to China and Iran and South Korea, those are all nations that South Africa has to think about, and certainly the Middle East region. Again, we have a difference of opinion on that, but those are all big political issues in America, and the role of, in particular, China in the world and the investment that they're making in other nations like South Africa, and the United States' response to our relationship, somewhat adversarial currently, to China. These two presidential candidates have very different views of how America will respond to all of those issues. So I think if you're somebody who's an interested observer in South Africa and wondering how your country will be affected, it really does matter who the next president of the United States is, because they take a very different worldview based upon their own personal politics, and that will affect issues like AGOA, which is going to be renegotiated and up for renewal next year, and what our relationship is with our trading partners like South Africa.
Well, I guess that helps to answer the question of why we should care about this election, even if it is taking place so far away from us. That's why we leave it on the talking point for today. The show back with you again between 9 and midday. Up next is the book reading.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SIFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wachela and Lumkile Wiseman Kushi. The reader is Lerato Velase.
Besides, overlaps in key areas which were already evident by 2003, especially in conflict resolution and peace building, the continuous liaison of personnel of the two institutions was challenging. The NAPAD Steering Committee and the AU Commission attempted to negotiate processes for cooperation, but tensions habitually arose. Reconciling and coordinating implementation programs led to anxieties, and Wiseman was often in the vanguard of the most difficult tasks. Simonda Mokoena describes Wiseman's adeptness in addressing these onerous tasks in the following way. The way the NAPAD processes worked, most initiatives started from the bottom, but in other cases, the AU would be involved, and then you would get the officials and ministers envisaging how things should work. I must say that the processes and activities to integrating these different personnel and their thoughts to parallel but different arrangements were nightmarish. Prof. Nkuthu brought all these contending views with lots of patience and lots of humility and plenty of effort. In between, there were immense trips with some connecting via Europe, even if we were still going to parts of the continent. The manner that Prof. Nkuthu worked impressed me, in the sense that he would never propose something to the heads of state without briefing them beforehand. I found out that his workings were such that he would not bring something that was fresh to the presidents that headed NAPAD without having briefed them thoroughly first. The incongruities in the modus operandi concerning NAPAD and the AU, as alluded to by Mokoena, added to the many challenges Wiseman was confronted with steering the NAPAD vision. The NAPAD HSGIC had by 2004 realized that full integration would affect NAPAD's profile, but it still agreed to align its works with those of the AU Commission instead of being fully integrated into the AU structures as proposed in Maputo during that year. Still, from that moment, NAPAD faltered as an initiative of progressive leaders prepared to commit resources to accomplish accountability for the continent's success. The selective definition of good governance became a norm in subsequent times. This was one key area noted by John Akokpari in 2004 as potentially threatening the APRM process in the long run. For instance, the NAPAD document originally presented a holistic view of governance to include not only the economic and corporate sectors, but also a political component, as well as peace and security. Akokpari emphasized that some AU-aligned leaders had gradually confined it to economic and corporate sectors, to the exclusion of its political objectives. As the integration was strongly mooted, NAPAD had also been projected as the AU's socio-economic program. Ironically, its original and fundamental principle of good governance and democracy were hurriedly being submerged. Taking stock of achievements from 2004 to 2005. Although some of these trials and tribulations had begun to weigh Wiseman down, he still focused on driving the NAPAD program forward, which for him was an appropriate endeavor to help the African child in a rapidly modernizing world. At the 12th summit of the NAPAD HSGIC held in Algiers in November 2004, Wiseman's secretariat identified 5 encompassing information and communication technologies, shared water basins, energy and transport. Third was the implementation of the CAADP. Fourth was the integration of the NAPAD priorities into national development plans to help countries achieve their Millennium Development Goals. Fifth was the continent's engagement with the international community. In 2004, Wiseman had reached the age of 60. By the time the above priorities were reassessed by respective African regions at Abuja in April 2005, Wiseman had begun to feel the fatigue of his interminable schedule. He had also realized that he still had his own unfinished commitments to attend to at home before he reached retirement age. Yet he did not want to leave the NAPAD vision with its noble principles unfulfilled, and so his Secretariat Progress Report to the Abuja meeting of 2005 focused mainly on the fundamentals of capacity building of the regional economic communities. It also recommended the enhancement of human resource capacity for the implementation of the NAPAD Environment Action Plan for 5 of the 7 regional economic communities: the ECOWAS, IGAD, ECAS, SADC, and the UMA, and the installation of expansive information management systems and databases to address the constraints of information databases across the continent. The last proposal aimed to enhance capacity for needs assessment within the 5 regional economic communities, which were previously a focus at Algiers. By the time the Abuja meeting adjourned, Wiseman had discussed with his immediate superiors, Presidents Mbeki, Obasanjo, Bouteflika, and Wade, his intentions to leave the positions he held in the NAPAD and return home to his family. Needless to say, they were saddened by the immense loss of the individual who had from the outset been very dedicated to driving forward the most ambitious project the African continent had ever conceptualized. In July 2005, 6 years after he was approached to offer his service as economic advisor in the South African presidency, Wiseman officially left government. Having gone through an exigent but exhilarating experience, he would soon look back on his contributions in the presidency and in the NAPAD with mixed feelings, gratification for his achievements on the one hand, and despondency that he had to leave on the other. All the same, he fully realized that he could not stay on in the public service for longer than he had. NAPAD had tested his management and leadership capabilities to the limit. He believed his training as a chartered accountant had helped him enormously, not only in the management of financial resources, but also in analyzing problems and drawing appropriate conclusions. There were many achievements that he was happy about. He believed that the political leadership demonstrated in the early years of NAPAD had created a conducive environment for the acceleration of debt reduction for heavily indebted African countries. Approaches to education and health had been fundamentally transformed by proposing comprehensive and integrated programs to build capacity and sustainability and reverse the HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis epidemics. He was pleased that through NAPAD he had made a contribution in transforming the relationship between Africa and the highly industrialized countries. Above all, for the first time, development priorities as defined by Africans had taken center stage in the discourse between Africa and the development partners. Specifically, agriculture, science and technology and infrastructure, including ICT, had been acknowledged and accepted as crucial to Africa's medium to long-term development. He knew he had contributed to reversing Afro-pessimism in a significant way. He was also satisfied with the strengthening of the African voice in international forums and African leadership in conflict resolution, even though there were still challenges outstanding. Wiseman was succeeded as CEO of the NAPAD Secretariat by Mozambican Firmino Mukavele, who had a distinguished career as Professor of Agricultural Economics in Mozambique and had played a very active role in the development of NAPAD programs. It was now time for Wiseman to attend to his family. His 4 children were growing up and needed guidance in their educational advancement and their own career development. It had been a long time since he had worked close to home and his family. His conscience was clear that he had contributed his part to the realization